is, every half point matters. Every half point matters. And that was certainly on display for the Eagles-Rams. It was on display for the Bills-Ravens totals. It was on display, obviously, for the intentional safety at the end of the game for Chiefs and Texans. So lots of point spread drama this past weekend. As you're betting, remember, these lines are tight. Every half point matters. And you don't know when it's going to come into play, but it does come into play. And it did, obviously, this past weekend.
It absolutely did. TC, you're right on it, man. I thought you were going to talk. I've heard a lot of people talk about the sides and close there. That total last night in terms of the Ravens Bills, man, that was right there on the half point. And unfortunately, I was on the wrong side. So you're right on top of that one as well. But let's talk about these games.
Let me jump in.
Yeah.
Because that might have been the worst one of the group for the books. All right. Chiefs, Texans, it was at 8 all week, 8.5. It didn't get to 9.5 until, I think, Saturday. So there wasn't two-way action all week. With the Eagles and the Rams, that opened 6 at 6 till about, Friday or Saturday. Then the market moved up to 6.5 and then 7. So, again, it wasn't a situation where it bounced back and forth all week. The total last night for the Bills and the Ravens, that bounced 51.5, 52, 52.5, back down to 52, back down to 51.5. All week long, back and forth, 51.5, 52.5. The books and I haven't heard it from everyone yet, but that was not a good result for the house. That one landing right on 52, that was every bit as bad, if not worse, than, Philly landed on 6 was probably good for the books. In a sense, they didn't have to pay out all the 6.5s and 7. The Chiefs landing 9 wasn't good for anybody, from a bookmaker standpoint. But that Bills-Ravens total landing right on 52 after the missed 2-point conversion at the end, that certainly was a borderline disaster for bookmakers. If you lost that total, and again, Drew, I took a 6 with the Rams and pushed for the clients. It's a scenario where, as a handicapper, you have to get bets out for your clients in a timely fashion. And sometimes when that happens, we take the worst of the number for the clients, and it's frustrating. That being said, in these scenarios where we know these lines are quote unquote tight, as a bettor, it's different when I'm posting a play. As a bettor, take your time, find the best of the number. It can make all the difference.
Yeah, that was very well said there, TC. And guys, we're going to get into the game, go down in rotation order of kickoff, as well as we got Sunday, January 26th for the right to play in the Super Bowl. We're talking the NFC Championship game and then the AFC Championship game back to back here, 3.5 hours difference of kickoff time. So we're going to talk the first one here, 101, 102 NFC Championship game. All NFC East Division Championship game with the Washington Commanders and Philadelphia Eagles. We are seeing the Eagles -5 and a hook here, Teddy. 48 being the total. There is a 47 and a hook popping up. I'll throw it over to you. Commanders and Eagles from Philadelphia.
So with the opening line report, I like to give you guys my powering number. I like to give you guys look-ahead lines, bettable lines on these games from last week, so we can see how much the results affected this past, the results from Sunday affected this particular point spread. We'll talk about where the numbers opened last night and where they've moved this morning. And the good news is I've got the look-ahead lines this week, but I didn't have last week. I've got some from the global books and some from here in Las Vegas. So I have actually 2 sets of look-ahead lines, although they're pretty similar. So let's start with Washington, Philly. My powering number for the game is Philadelphia -5.5. The look-ahead lines. One book opened 6 last night. One book had a 6 as a look-ahead line. Another book had a 5.5 as a look-ahead line. Total look-ahead lines. One book had a 47. Another book had a 48.5. Opened last night. Clearly, Philly 5 and 48. So we've seen a little bit of Eagles money. The 5s are mostly gone. There's still a couple out there, but not many. 5.5, the prevailing number. 48, the prevailing total. We haven't seen a whole lot of movement on that. So a little bit of Eagles money, nothing doing on the total when it comes to the earliest betting action for Washington, Philly. And of course, when you're talking about weather reports a week out, because let's be honest, weather significantly affected both the gameplay and potentially the results in 3 of the 4 games this past weekend. All right. The only one that didn't was the one that was indoors for Detroit. And they probably wish they had some weather or something in that ball game because it wasn't a fun night for Lions fans. But certainly the weather as big a factor as any when it comes to these postseason matchups in January in Philadelphia, in Kansas City. And of course, the 7-day weather forecast out is, 4 days, 5 days, you get a much better a read than 7 days. So I haven't even looked at weather issues just yet. When we talk about the Eagles, well, let me talk about the series real quick. Because these two teams obviously played twice in the regular season. Philly won the first game 26-18. The Commanders won the rematch in December 36-33. That game comes with 2 asterisks. 1, Jalen Hurts exited with a concussion in the first quarter. 2, Washington turned the ball over 5 times in that game and still won straight up as an underdog. So when your team turns the ball over 5, look at the teams that turned the ball over 5 times this past weekend. They didn't exactly have a whole lot of success. But it ended up being a +3 turnover margin because the Eagles turned it over twice. That being said, when you're the beneficiary of 5 turnovers and you lose the game outright, that says something. Now, we're going to have to see how healthy Hurts is. Hurts looked like he hurt his knee yesterday after a sack in the third quarter. And he said he expects to play. Quote, "It was a tough game, a challenging game. I was able to finish the game. We'll see how the week goes." That being said, after that sack, after that injury, Philadelphia's offense was handoff by and large. Of course, the handoffs worked. Saquon Barkley had a huge game. And as we've seen, LaShawn McCoy taught me this lesson in Philadelphia. When there's snow on the field, the defense gets tired. The running backs can have huge games. And obviously, Saquon with a pair of huge touchdown runs. Yesterday, he passed a franchise record for most rushing yards in a playoff game. Here's one for you, Drew. That was set by Steve Van Buren in 1949, and it also came against the Rams. Barkley's quote, "That atmosphere was crazy. It was insane. I got a smile on my face thinking about it. This is what you dream about. This is why I came to Philly. I want to be part of games like this. I'm just happy to be a part of it." Yeah. Now, Philly finished the game with 65 net pass. Or 65 net passing yards. They had 128 total, and they had 63 sack yards. They were out-yarded for the game, 402 to 350. They were out first down, 18-16. Jalen Hurts was sacked 7 times. Jake Elliott missed a pair of extra points. And, of course, with the 2 missed extra points from Jake Elliott and the Hurts safety, that was 4 cheap points for LA. It made a big difference in the point spread. But the second half played in a blizzard. All right. That being said, Rams found a way to throw the football in the fourth quarter. The Eagles didn't. So Philly 16-3. They had a 1-point loss to Atlanta week 2. They had a 70-point loss to Tampa in week 4. And then the Commanders lost in week 16. They've certainly been in these big games before. They've certainly not played their best here in the playoffs and have survived and advanced a pair of times. Sometimes that works out well for a team that hasn't necessarily played their A game in either of the first 2 postseason contests. And the Commanders in rarefied air, obviously back-to-back big upset wins on the road. First the Bucs, and then on Saturday night against the Lions. Jaden Daniels, brilliant. Again, 22 of 31, 299, 2 touchdowns, no picks, 9.6 yards per pass attempt. He had 242 yards passing at halftime. All right. That's a rookie record, of course, 1 week after becoming the first rookie quarterback to lead his team in yards rushing and passing in a playoff win. Now, look, Washington was +5 in turnovers. They went 4 of 4 in the red zone. They went 3 of 4 on fourth down. Detroit was -5 in turnovers, and they were stopped 3 times in the red zone. Now, this is a Washington defense that only forced 17 turnovers for the entirety of the regular season. They have now 6 in 2 postseason games. Let's talk about other rookie quarterbacks in the history of rookie QBs. Other rookie QBs to win 2 playoff games. You have Mark Sanchez in 2009. You have Joe Flacco in 2008. You have Brock Purdy in 2022. They all lost in the conference championship game. The only other two rookies that started these games, Sean King for Tampa and Big Ben for Pittsburgh. They lost too. In fact, I went back and watched the catch. It was one of those catches I remembered in my head. I'm like, Ricky Prohl and that catch against from Kurt Warner to beat Tampa in the Sean King game. What a catch. If you ever go back and look at it on YouTube, to send the Rams to the Super Bowl the second time with Warner. But Tampa scored 6 points in that game with Sean King, QB. And again, the 5-point margin of defeat for Tampa, the lowest of any of those rookie quarterbacks, Sanchez, Flacco, Purdy, King, and Big Ben, after having reached the conference championship game as a rookie. Washington, the box scores turned around. All these games, again, the team that won the box score lost the game. Washington, because turnovers were the big difference. Washington allowed 7.7 yards per play. They were outgained by more than a yard per play. They were out total yard 521 to 41. Daniel scored. It's a surreal moment. I always believe we could achieve more than people give us credit for. And obviously, he didn't turn the ball over. Dan Quinn, he's a different poise. He's a rare competitor. Terry McLaurin, you talk about plays in the game that don't necessarily get remembered at the end quite the same way. The Lions had withstood the Commanders' initial punch. They marched down the field. They took a touchdown or up 14-10, and it felt like Detroit was kind of taking over the game a little bit. And then Terry McLaurin with a catch and run, 58-yard touchdown, and then the pick six right after. I thought that McLaurin catch and run was as big as any play in the game. McLaurin's quote, "Nothing surprises me with him when it comes to Jaden Daniels." That being said, big injury loss for Washington. Don't underestimate it. The offensive guard, Sam Cosmi, was injured late in the ballgame. He tore his ACL. He's out for the remainder of the playoffs. Dan Quinn really bummed on Sam. That's a big loss for us. So I can understand why Philly's taking the money here, the early money. Philly's a class in this ballgame, and Philly really hasn't brought their A game in either of their first two playoff victories. They probably have a better game in them than the one we just saw. That being said, when we're talking about rookie QBs, Jaden Daniels is as good as any as we've ever seen. Okay. And we're not surprised by that. He had a ton of experience in college against high-level competition. He's been well coached from day one with a organization that was built for his talent and an offensive game plan that was built. It wasn't like, Kingsbury got this system and you have to figure into it. No, the quarterback, the coordinator, the coach, all on the same page from the beginning. But it's certainly rarefied air for a team like Washington. Philly has been and succeeded in big games like this one before. And of course, we haven't seen Philly play their best game yet this postseason. We've certainly seen that from Washington.
Great analysis there, TC. And I'll tell you guys, I got to give Teddy Covers some props here. And some of you guys, VIP watchers for the whole year, will remember this. Teddy, I remember it very vividly. I don't know if it was week one or a couple episodes before that, like leading up into the season. You went over the Washington Commanders and said, there is a chance here offensively this could work. I agreed with you, but it was your assessment. Jalen Daniels, Cliff Kingsbury, bringing that from college. Sure enough, you called that, man. Hopefully you made some money over it, because I remember you saying that on the show.
I appreciate that. Probably not as much money as I should have made. Because that's one of the things that, when you're working, we're in a situation where you're working multiple sports, so you're not locked in on one. And so, you say stuff, you believe it, and then you go through it, and sometimes you don't remember as well as you like to. I felt like I probably should have made more money with Washington this season, because as you talked about, it was something that it's certainly from where this franchise has been. It's been a pretty big shocker. All right, but all of a sudden the Commanders franchise is worth something again, and we can credit that to Jaden Daniels and the coaching staff surrounding him.
Sure. And you brought up weather. I just looked it up. AccuWeather has Philadelphia 39 degrees, 15 mile per hour winds, probability of precipitation at 17%. Not sure if that would change, if that is what the case is in 6 days from now. Would that change anything for you?
So when it comes to dealing with snowy conditions, Philadelphia just showed us they could. So if there's precipitation, that matters. 39 degrees is nothing. It wouldn't affect my handicap at all. Obviously, if the wind blows, it's not good for downfield passing, which probably favors Philadelphia. Philadelphia is a team that's shown us they don't need to throw downfield. They can hand off to Saquon again and again, and it works for them. So I guess my initial, the wind would point me towards Philly. But I mean, look, the game plan here is stop Saquon and make Hurts beat you. And I'm not, lots of teams have tried that game plan so far this season. Not so many have succeeded.
Absolutely. And I'll segue here, guys, to the next game. And by the way, thanks for everybody watching live right now on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. We've got a bunch of people here in the live chat. Have Cash, Robert S., Titan CT, Coin in the house as well. Feel free to fire away any questions, guys, and what your view is on the games. All is welcome. If you're watching on replay, fire away any questions in the comments below. We'll answer them on next week's show. We got the next game coming up right now in the AFC Championship game. And by the way, the Kansas City weather projection for Sunday night is 21 degrees, 5 to 20 miles per hour, with only a 2% probability of precipitation. So I'll get it in here, Teddy, and tee it up for you. We got 103, 104, Buffalo Bills, Kansas City Chiefs from Arrowhead Stadium. Does look like the Chiefs now -2 at most shops. There is -1.5 still out there as the home favorite. 47 and a hook, or 48 being the total. Bills at Chiefs for the right to play in the Super Bowl.
Sure. Before I want to give a little promo before we get into this, and it's real simple. Buy a 3-day all-access pass, get 1 day free. Bang. 4 days for extra picks. It's 33% additional value. No extra cost. $69 gets you 4 days. All access from the capper of your choice. Visit my page, wt.buzz/TC, or any of the pages at WagerTalk.com, including wt.buzz/DM for Drew Martin's page, or just visit the website, WagerTalk.com. And of course, let's talk about $5 Tuesday as well. That's tomorrow. Every capper, or just about every capper, has a best bet available for only $5 if you haven't bought from WagerTalk.com. It's a great opportunity. Get on board for $5, and that includes all best bets. You'll see 4%, you'll see 5% up there. Just $5. Check it out tomorrow on $5 Tuesday at WagerTalk.com. When it comes to the Bills and the Chiefs, how about this for synchronicity? My powering number, Kansas City -1.5. I have 2 sets of look-aheads here in Vegas, -1.5. Offshore, Kansas City -1.5. It opened last night, Kansas City -1.5. What are we seeing today? We've seen some upward pressure to 2, and then we see some buyback down to 1.5. It's a split line right now between 2 and 1.5, but I've seen books go up to 2 and back down to 1.5 this morning. So we are seeing two-way action on this side. So my powering number is 1.5. The 2 look-aheads were 1.5. It opened 1.5. It got bet up to 2, but now it's been bet down to 1.5. Yeah, there's not. When we say the lines are tight, the lines are pretty tight at this time of the year. The look-ahead totals, one was 48.5, one was 47.5. We're seeing right now 47.5, the prevailing number. We have seen under money, and that certainly could have something to do with the weather forecast you just talked about, Drew, where it's supposed to be cold, and there's a chance for windy conditions in this one. And these are 2 teams right now, both of whom are very comfortable shortening the game. All right, it's not about big plays for the Bills offense. It's not about big plays for the Chiefs offense. It's about grinding out first downs. And you see both of these teams with these long 5, 6, 7, 8-minute drives. That's certainly a piece of the equation when it comes to why we've seen some under money for this one. So let's talk a little bit about what's happened this past weekend for these 2 teams. And again, every team that won lost the box score. Let's talk with Kansas City. The Texans had 18 first downs. KC had 14. KC had 212 total yards in that game compared to 336 for Houston. KC only 4.2 yards per play. Houston had 5.2. Houston went 10 of 17 on third downs. Houston, 29 of 149 running the football, 5.1 yards per carry. KC, 22 of 50, 3.3 yards per carry. No turnovers for either team. So KC didn't even force a turnover. These are not we won and covered at -8/-8.5 box score numbers. All right. And yet somehow KC found a way to do it. How about this, Drew? Houston, the first team in playoff history to outgain their opponent by 100 or more yards and without turning the ball over, to lose straight up. Previous teams were 49-0 in the playoffs. And again, not only did they lose straight up, they lost against the spread for most bettors. So what happened? Well, Will Anderson got it right. The Texans were playing against the Chiefs and the refs. Quote, we knew it was going to be us versus the refs going into this game. And the calls did go for Kansas City. Houston 8 for 82 when it comes to penalties. KC only had 29 penalty yards. But every bit of an issue as that was the special teams for Houston. Obviously, Kai Fairbairn, the field goal missed to tie the game in the first half. He had the field goal blocked. That made a huge point spread difference. In the second half of the game, he had the missed extra point. And they had the 63-yard kickoff return on the opening play. The special teams miscues for Houston cost them as much as the refs did, if not more. That being said, KC's gotten the calls. And would you expect that to be different this time around? I don't know. People are like, I'm sick of the Chiefs. I'm sick of the Chiefs. I'm sick of the Chiefs. For NFL fans, the Chiefs, 7 straight AFC Championship games. There is a little bit of Chiefs fatigue. For the casual fans, the ones that the NFL is trying to attract to watch the conference championship games and the Super Bowl, the ones who aren't NFL fans who just tune in a couple of games a year, well, they're very interested in Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. He's the one who drives the ratings. So that's certainly worth noting. And, of course, the under was the right side in the game between the Chiefs and Texans. The total was bet down to 41.5 and landed 37. KC had 8 sacks on C.J. Stroud. But how tough is the AFC, man? Mahomes, Burrow, Lamar, Josh Allen. I still think Herbert's elite. C.J. Stroud isn't going to get any notice. He was awesome in that game. Worth noting for Kansas City, 4th team in NFL history to follow back-to-back Super Bowl wins with a trip to the conference title game. The previous 3, that was the 1976 Pittsburgh Steelers, the 1990 San Francisco 49ers, the 1994 Dallas Cowboys, that all won back-to-back Super Bowls and reached the conference championship game. All 3 of those teams lost, but it's been a long time since the 49ers beat the Cowboys in 94. Very different era. And now, Mahomes after the game, it's been a special run. I still remember moments from the World Series my dad played when I was 5 years old. These are the moments I will cherish my entire life. And, of course, Mahomes is 16-3 in the postseason, and he's basically a pick'em game. He's already tied Joe Montana for the second most wins by a starting quarterback in NFL history. Only Tom Brady has more. And Kansas City able to survive and advance. They got nothing from DeAndre Hopkins, Hollywood Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster. No catches between them. Only 4 targets. Mahomes was under pressure throughout the game. He found Travis Kelce enough. And, of course, 7 consecutive now appearances in a game of this magnitude, a conference championship game. They've hosted all but the one last year. So KC very familiar in these spots. And, of course, last year they became the first team to win back-to-back Super Bowls in 20 years. Obviously, the task here, even tougher, being that they're being asked to do something that has never been done in the history of the league. So when you look at the Buffalo Bills side of the equation, and again, 27-25, we talked about the KC-Houston line landing in the middle, the Philly-Rams line landing on the side, the Buffalo-Baltimore total landing in the middle. And, of course, it was a teaser killer. I warned last time, there's going to be one teaser killer out there, and there almost always is. And Detroit under, obviously, we're not cashing. The other 7 teaser sides all cashed this weekend. So how did Buffalo win yesterday? I'm not convinced they weren't the better team necessarily. Baltimore went 7-10 on third downs, 101 on fourth. Baltimore gained 416 yards. Buffalo only 273 yards per play. Baltimore 7.3 yards per play. Buffalo 4.6. Those are not we won the game numbers. But the Bills had only 1 penalty and no turnovers. The Ravens with 5 penalties, several of them key, and 3 turnovers. Plus 3 turnovers, you're going to win. And they almost didn't. Obviously a dropped 2-point conversion had a pretty big impact on the finale of that ball game. Don't know what would happen had it gone to extra time. The Bills finished the regular season with a league best plus 24 turnover differential. They were plus 3 again yesterday. It's been 21 straight games for the Bills, including the playoffs, without losing a turnover battle. Not one time in the last 21 games has Josh Allen and company turned the ball over more than their opponents did. That is the tied for the longest streak in NFL history. You know when the last time a team did it, Drew? The Rams did it in 1952 and 1953.
Oh, yeah, so, that's it.
Yeah, I figured you were going to guess that one. And, I mean, Mark Andrews fumbled as Baltimore was driving in to take the lead in the fourth quarter on the road. The defense responded, held Buffalo to a field goal. Lamar responded, drives Baltimore down the field into the end zone. And then Andrews dropped the 2-point conversion, which should have been money. You read the quotes after the game, Buffalo's pretty happy. Josh Allen. How about that Bills defense? All year, this team we heard, we got no talent. We're too small. We can't stop the run. We're not good enough to compete. We just put our head down and worked hard. I'm so proud of our defense. I'm so proud of our offense and special teams. What a complete win. We're excited. There's a lot of pride in that locker room. We didn't listen to the outside noise. Everyone was saying this and that about us. Our guys continue to work hard. We are internally driven. Of course, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen. 4-4 in the 8 the 8 head-to-head meetings between these two teams. Mahomes 3-0 in the playoffs. Of course, these teams met back in week 11. The Bills 30-21. It was Kansas City's only loss this season where they played their starters. Last year they played the divisional round. 27-24 Kansas City on the road. Not many teams have been able to beat Kansas City twice in a season in the modern era. It's happened twice so far in recent years, the 2018 Patriots, the 2021 Bengals. So it's not common for Kansas City to lose twice to a single opponent. It is worth noting for Buffalo, all right, 10-0 at home, perfect season on their home field. But the injury report for Buffalo, certainly Taylor Rapp. He hurt his hip in the second quarter, did not return yesterday. He is an impact player. Taron Johnson, the cornerback, returned to the game late. He suffered, I believe it was a shoulder stinger, but his status is worth monitoring. If Rapp or Johnson doesn't play, advantage Kansas City. Josh Allen's quote, "We know what they are. They're the perennial of what you want to be in the NFL. You've got to beat them to get past them. So we're going to enjoy this one tonight and then focus on the next one," which is exactly what he's supposed to say. These two teams have played some classics. No surprise here if we see another one on Sunday night at Arrowhead.
Great analysis there, Teddy. And it leads me into the first question here, guys. If you're watching live, fire away in the live chat. You bring up the Bills' injuries, and I'm going back here. They have not had a bye week since November. This will be their 9th straight game. Of course, they didn't have a bye in the playoffs like Kansas City did with the number 1 seed. Is that factoring into the handicap as well in terms of rest, maybe kind of helping the Chiefs here and being at home?
Sure. I mean, Kansas City, and the clients and I cashed with the Chiefs this past weekend. I laid, I forget if I laid 8 or 8.5. It wasn't 9. I didn't put it on game day or the day before. So at least we got the better of that number. But a big part of that thought process, it wasn't any disrespect of Houston, but it was that Kansas City is as healthy as they've been really all year. That bye week really helped the Chiefs in terms of getting them back to health. And obviously, Buffalo, not in the same circumstance in that regard. Buffalo also played on Sunday compared to Kansas City on Saturday. So there are some perhaps little edges here for the Chiefs in that regards when it comes to freshness and injury statuses. I don't know if it's enough to move the needle for me, situation-wise. I mean, it's little notches on Kansas City, not big notches on Kansas City. So if you're making a case for the Chiefs, it's how you can make it. You can add to that case. I don't think it's enough just to okay, one team played Sunday, one team played Saturday. From a condition standpoint, of all the teams, I think the Eagles might be the most gassed because that playing in that snow takes a lot out of you. But the fact that KC has the extra day to prepare and had the week off last week certainly bodes well for their chances. I just don't know that it's a difference maker.
Yeah, that's a good point here, Teddy. I'm just thinking of this off the top of my head with what you just said. You know, the NFL and the playoff schedule structure, it really helps the number one seeds with that extra day in the following round. And you bring up Philadelphia, maybe be on the negative of that. And sure enough, Washington, even though they weren't the number one seed, gained that extra day by beating Detroit. So it's almost like a double-edged sword towards helping the Washington side. That's a great point there, TC.
Sure, and again,
all right, got to ask another question here.
But just real quick, it's not anything that's going to okay. That's enough to make a bet. You know, it's not even close to that. But if I'm making a case for Washington, if I'm making a case for Kansas City, you can certainly use that as part of the case.
Yeah, absolutely, an extra day of preparation time there. Okay, got to bring it up, Teddy. Asking this question, I would laugh at it. But this is multiple years now. We just saw it with the Kansas City Chiefs. You said Patrick Mahomes. The NFL obviously wants this to happen. I don't want to say corruption, but it's more money in their pocket if they get the Chiefs to go to the Super Bowl, Taylor Swift, the whole bit. I think there's legs here. Am I crazy for thinking that? And if so, or if not, and you somewhat agree, does that make a bet on the Kansas City Chiefs maybe even a better bet with all that on your side?
So I do not believe that NFL games are fixed. All right. You're not going to get me into there's a conspiracy here, the theory here that, the league if Buffalo outplays Kansas City, Buffalo's going to go to the Super Bowl. And then Josh Allen will start getting plenty of hype. And it's not like Josh Allen's a guy that the league doesn't want to hype, or Buffalo's a team that wouldn't attract attention. That said, for the casual fan, the Kansas City Chiefs are the modern Dallas Cowboys or the modern New England Patriots, or they're the team that people tune in to watch. So the league does get higher viewership on Chiefs games than they do on other games, and that's not guys like you and I or anyone that's watching this show, because we're all football fans and we're all football bettors, and we pay attention to this every week. When Patrick Mahomes is in play, the guys that watch one game a year or two games a year, really? All right, yeah, maybe I'll click it on. So, and that's how you get the huge viewership numbers, is the casual fans, not the serious fans. So it's in the league's financial interest to have a guy like Patrick Mahomes survive and advance as long as possible. That being said, for a game like this, it's like Houston's got we know C.J. Stroud. The general public, the Texans, who are the Texans? I never heard of that team. I mean, literally. Mm-hmm. That's not the case for the Buffalo Bills. I expect this game to be reffed on the up and up. I don't expect to see Kansas City be the beneficiary of every call like they were last week.
Okay. We also have some questions here in the live chat, Teddy. One of them about second half. Yeah, okay, here we go from Coin. Question, will these Kansas City second half unders in the playoffs continue to be a thing?
So it feels like that played like the Kansas City under, which was good last year, has been obviously good in the first game this year. It's not a trend I'm looking to stay in front of, but that has everything to do with gameplay and how the game plays out. The Chiefs are behind. They're going to have to throw the football, and they've got weapons downfield to do it. If Buffalo's, I don't think that first game against the Bills went under in the second half. I'm not sure. I don't remember offhand, but I don't think it did. But it feels to me like that bet is something that I'm not going to make blindly. If the first half plays out that Kansas City's in control, they're relying on the defense the second half and running the football. That's what they do. They're very comfortable in that methodology. So I think if the Chiefs are ahead, it probably bodes well for unders. But it's not like Buffalo's going to be Buffalo's in a scenario where they have a completely different game plan than Kansas City. They want to push pace. No, I mean, these two teams both have that grinded out mentality of comfortable. Let's take what the defense gives us. The Bills don't have a 900-yard receiver this year. Not one receiver that's got to 900 yards. There's not a team that's loaded with big playmakers. So I would think both of these teams, the goal is let's dink and dunk. Let's grind out first downs. And that could well change after halftime if one team falls behind. So I'd be more inclined to look at a second half under if you see a tight game at halftime than you see one team in control. And that's just the first thoughts.
Makes sense, Teddy. Teddy, what about any kind of look-ahead lines for the Super Bowl between any of these teams? Does any of that interest you for certain matchups in the Super Bowl that you think might be advantageous for bettors to get in front of waiting until the actual Super Bowl matchup? Keeping in mind, if it isn't the matchup, you get your money back.
Let me think about it, because I haven't thought about it. I know we're going to see numbers, but they're not out Monday morning. So we'll see looking at lines, and I'll write them all down, and we'll have what the markets thought prior for next week's edition of Opening Line Report. Thank you so much for watching each and every week. We really appreciate you. I mean, the feedback I get, it blows me away every week. You guys are so kind in the chat and the comments. I really appreciate it. You don't have to be kind. You can rip me. It's okay. I can handle it. But we appreciate the likes. We appreciate the comments. We appreciate the follows very, very much. But now I lost track of what I was saying, Drew. What the hell was I talking about? What did you ask me?
Like the future Super Bowl odds for.
Oh, right. Yeah. So we'll see some. Let's think it out loud. All right. So if Kansas City faces, let's just go through the potential match. Kansas City and Philly, the two favorites, come out. There's not a scenario where I'm just saying the teams themselves. The teams that were expected to be there are there. Kansas City is not a team that gets a lot of love in the markets right now. Philadelphia's in revenge for the Super Bowl loss a couple of years ago, but it's Mahomes and company. I don't see that a scenario where the Chiefs-Eagles is likely to create some one-way action. If it's Washington-Kansas City, again, Washington's going to have a big betting bandwagon. Kansas City's going to be the wise guy choice. That's not a scenario where I think we're likely that might be a sharp square divide game, but it's not going to be a game where there's clear value one way or the other. If it's Buffalo Philly, that's an interesting one, because maybe the Bills, if it's Buffalo Philly, the Bills are going to get some respect for going into Arrowhead and beating Kansas City twice. And that might be the one that you might want to attack like this week if you want Buffalo. That just as we're talking about, again, I haven't seen any numbers. I don't know where to line it. But if Buffalo beats KC and they play Philly, even if Buffalo plays Washington, I think the Bills are likely to get a fair bit of support. So that may be the one to target, as the Buffalo side of the equation. But again, I'm just talking this out. I haven't thought about it ahead of time. I could be missing something completely. That's why I don't make bets right when I talk it out. You give it a minute, think about it, let it play through. But at first glance, I think the Bills likely to get more betting attention off of wins and covers this weekend than Kansas City. Let's just see what that Philly-Buffalo look-ahead line would be, because the Eagles will be favored there.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised. I just pulled up a couple sportsbook. I might not be finding it, but I'm not a novice in terms of clicking around sports books, and I can't find the future line as we're doing the show. Rick J chiming in the
Monday morning, dude. Yeah, we'll see that tomorrow. We'll see that Wednesday. We'll see that Thursday. Well, it's too early on Monday morning. They're not focused on that just yet. It'll come.
Rick J in the house saying the total, if it's KC and Washington, towards I'm guessing the over. He would say jump on sooner than later. Could see that, but at the same time, to Teddy's point, it's kind of longer drives for the Chiefs. But Teddy, actually, you kind of qualified that with your just thinking about. I thought that was gold asking you that question, you talking it through. So thanks, man. As that was just off the hip, if you will, guys. But Teddy, I guess quickly, Ohio State, Notre Dame tonight for anybody watching, -9, -8.5. That is the Buckeyes, 45 and a hook being the total. Atlanta, Georgia for the national championship. Anything quickly, Buckeyes and Irish tonight?
Yeah, you can find 8 on Ohio State at the Westgate here in Las Vegas, if you're here in Las Vegas. I'm in play on the side. You can get my play at wt.buzz/TC. I've given out the under as a free play. I talked about it earlier today on WagerTalk today. And again, what did we see last year? 17-14 last year, 21-10 the year before. Certainly, we're talking about the top 2 total defense teams in the country, the top 2 scoring defensive teams in the country. My case on the side, I think, is stronger because I'm not expecting I'm not expecting a boatload of offense necessarily from either squad in this game, but I think one team in particular is going to have a real hard time scoring. So I mean under on Monday Night Football tonight. And again, we've seen the total sitting 45 and a half. Not a lot of movement there on the total. A little bit of Buckeyes money here as we speak on Monday morning. But this game's getting two-way action. Really, a side and total.
Love it, Teddy. And guys, that's going to do it for the NFL opening line report here. Of course, talking about the Super Bowl coming up next as opening line report Super Bowl edition. So come back and join us right here on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. But Teddy, I'll throw it back over to you, man. Anything else you want to throw out before we shut this down?
Yeah, I just want to, again, a little bit of promo. If you guys are interested in getting on board with any package, get 3-day all access and get a day free. So it's a 30% value that expires Tuesday at midnight. So you get 4 full days of expert picks, and you can stack them. So you can get a couple of those if you want and get 8 days by all means. And you can take advantage of them from me or any of the cappers at WagerTalk.com. In addition, be sure to check back tomorrow, $5 Tuesday. Best bets from all participating handicappers at Sports Memo and WagerTalk for just $5, and you can get as many as you want of those. So we appreciate the likes so much, the follows, the comments. Thank you for being part of the WagerTalk family, and best of luck this weekend. Cheers.
Well said, Teddy. Guys, comment below any questions. Teddy and myself will be in there chiming in throughout the week. Championship week coming up this Sunday. We got NFL opening line report, Super Bowl edition. Come back and join us next Monday. For Teddy Covers, I'm Drew Martin. Thanks for tuning in. Smash that like button, comment below, cash those tickets. Enjoy the rest of your Monday.